I would just like to briefly discuss the role intertextuality plays in Chronicle of a Death Foretold. In particular, I'd like to draw your attention to the ways in which the story of the death through crucifixion of Jesus Christ influences the novella in its depiction of the death of Santiago Nassar. I think a strong argument can be made that Garcia Marquez has deliberately echoed the biblical story of the death of Jesus in his portrayal of the death of Santiago Nassar. And I can think of three main reasons why this might be the case. Firstly, the death of Jesus Christ is foretold in the Bible before it happens. Jesus himself suggests that he is destined to sacrifice his life, that it is the will of his Father, that's God the Father, that he die in this way, and that this cannot really be avoided, and that it's God's will that this will happen. So Jesus predicts his death. His death is foretold. And of course, Santiago Nassar, the novella says that never had a death been more foretold than the death of Santiago Nassar. So through intertextuality, a sense of the inevitability of Santiago Nassar's death is heightened and emphasized. Santiago Nassar is, and this is my second point, is potentially innocent of the crime for which he dies, for which he is killed. As far as we know, there's lots of good evidence that he was not guilty of what the Vicario twins kill him for. This sort of echoes the way in which Jesus was innocent. He was a pure sacrifice that by no means deserved what happened to him. And perhaps through this intertextual reference, the novella is emphasizing the injustice of killing an innocent man. Don't forget, Santiago Nassar is dressed in pure white on the day he dies. And this reminds us of Jesus, who was often depicted dressed in white to symbolize his purity and innocence. And this is connected to the third reason why I think perhaps the biblical story of the death of Jesus is echoed, and deliberately echoed, in the novella, because the story of the death of Jesus is associated with sin and guilt. Christians believe that Jesus had to die to pay the price of the sin of everyone in the world. That because all people were guilty and sinful, Jesus died. He paid the price. And I think this draws a parallel with Chronicle of a Death Foretold. Everyone in the village, or most people in the village, are portrayed as being guilty of the death of Santiago Nassar. Maybe just in small ways. It's not just the Vicario twins that carry the guilt of what happened to Santiago Nassar. The village itself collectively is guilty, in the same way that many Christians believe that people are collectively guilty and sinful of the death of Jesus. So I can see real connections, and these are intertextual connections between the Bible story of the death of Jesus Christ and the portrayal in the novel of the death of Santiago Nassar. There are some obvious parallels too in the way Santiago Nassar is sort of almost nailed to the wall of his house, and the suffering of Christ being nailed to the cross. There are other similarities as well. And I don't believe that any of this is coincidental. I believe, as a Catholic writer, Gabriel Garcia Marquez knew very well the intertextual sort of references he was making in depicting the death of Santiago Nassar in the way he did. Even if that were not the case, we can still, through our own interpretation, see parallels between the death of Santiago Nassar and the biblical account of the death of Jesus. And this is not to say that Santiago Nassar is a purely Christ-like figure, or even that he is Jesus Christ. That is not, I believe, what this novella states. It's just that there are parallels and influences from the story of the death of Jesus to the story of the death of Santiago Nassar in the novella.